Hey there folks, Mr. Fiddler here. This is a short video on the process of costume design. Now, next to set design, costume design may be one of the most difficult, most involved parts of the design process, and it also gives, like set design, a ton of information to the audience. While set design really lets the audience know a lot about the world of the play, costume design really lets them know about the specific characters. It's a way to understand the characters before the characters even open their mouths. And along with set design, gives us a sense of the time period of the play, the world, the mood of the play as well. So to start off with, there's two types of costume designs. The one that's most common, most detailed, is what we would think of as character costume design. There's an example here. These are what your main characters are going to be wearing. They are used to give there's a lot of information that has to be given to the audience through these costumes, and they will spend a lot of time on them. Typically, a primary character may have multiple costumes over the course of a play, and so character costume designs are going to be where you spend a lot of your time. The other type of design, as you see here, are what we call decorative costume designs. These are used for the ensemble or the chorus in a musical, or the background characters in a big set piece scene in Shakespeare. These are where you have lots of people on stage wearing these things, and what your goal as a designer is the overall stage picture, to give us an overall look when we see all these actors on stage together. This is, if you think of the production we did of Pippin, the ensemble was on stage the whole time, and they had these type of decorative costumes that taken together had to give us a sense of the whole ensemble, the whole stage picture, the whole troupe of actors that happened in that play, less than the individual specific characterizations. So what is the information? I said lots of information comes out in the costumes. What is that? Well, first of all, there's objective information about the characters and about the world of the play. The first is historical period. Nothing tells us the period of the play as much as the costumes do, because fashion changes so much. People wear different things at different times. So the historical period of the play is told to us through the costumes more than almost anything else. It also means as a designer, you really have to start by researching the period of the play. We also get a sense of the age of the characters. In a big professional theater, you will usually have actors of the appropriate age playing a role, but at high school, we're all teenagers, and some people may be playing adults or old people or young people, and that age is really conveyed through the costuming. We also learn about their socioeconomic status. Rich people tend to dress very differently than poor people. It's a huge way of letting us know. We know their occupation. That affects how they dress. And we know the climate and the season, again, looking at the world of the play. People dress differently in the summer than in the winter, and that illusion of really being in that time and that place is going to come through in the costumes. So those are all objective, practical concerns for costume, but it doesn't stop there. There are additional considerations when you're costuming. The first of them is the character's psychology. What we think of ourselves and what we think of the world is often expressed in what we wear. Someone who goes around wearing a very tightly buttoned up shirt and a tie and a vest and all that, that says something about their psychology versus someone who's wearing, an unbuttoned shirt and rolled up collars, kind of stained down there or something. The actor really creates the character, but the costuming can really support those choices that the actor and the director makes. So the character psychology, also the character's evolution. Very rarely is a character the same at the beginning of the play as they are at the end of the play. The costume changes a character makes can give us information that's objective, like if you think of All My Sons, the beginning, the father is wearing shirt sleeves and is unbuttoned because it's morning, he's relaxed. In the second scene, though, he's in a suit because he's going out to dinner. That is objective information. However, it can also give us subjective information. That is information about what's going on in the character's head. So if you have a character who starts the play wearing very sort of light colors, this might represent a more optimistic view of the world, whereas by the end scene, if that person is wearing very dark colors, then perhaps their world's view has gotten darker as well. We saw this in All My Sons, in some of the female characters as well there. Their characters, their color changed over the course of the play to reflect that darkening worldview. So as the character evolves, so too their costume can evolve. Also, where there is what we think of as stylization. This is the mood of the play. Some pieces may be very, very realistic, and therefore their costumes are very realistic. And if you're doing a period piece, then that might be a lot of work to make sure you have a realistic costume that would be true for the Elizabethan era or something. However, not all plays are realistic. Plays might be stylized, and therefore the costumes represent that stylization. Perhaps a costume might be very whimsical, very non-realistic, because the sense of the play is that as well. Finally, just as with set and with props and all these things, there are some practical concerns as well. The first of them are the needs of the actor. No matter how great a costume looks, if they can't move in it, that costume doesn't work. You might want to put your actors in skinny jeans, but if they have to be running around and doing cartwheels, that's going to be a really bad choice. Also, you want to keep in mind the needs of the production venue. If you're doing a show in a big 3,000-seat auditorium, those costumes are going to have to be a bit larger than life. They need to be vibrant colors and very large outlines so they can be seen. I remember a friend who designed costumes for a show at Kookaboot Amphitheater, and all of the designs were almost like twice normal size so they could be seen from that great distance. In a theater like ours, it's the opposite problem. It's a very small theater, the audience is very close, and therefore everything has to be very realistic, very highly detailed. Otherwise, it's going to look fake. And of course, the other major concern, as always, is budget. How much is it going to cost? Costumes are a huge expense because everyone on stage has to be wearing something. And usually there are costume changes throughout the show as well. So budget is a huge concern. So where do we get costumes? There are four primary things. One of them is to actually make the costumes. If you have a costume shop and you have a bunch of tailors and seamstresses, you can actually make the costumes specific to your actors. It's a tremendous luxury when you have that. Colleges will sometimes have that. Big Broadway theaters will have that. We do not have a costume shop like that, as most high schools don't. So what it really comes down to are three primary sources. The first of them are renting costumes. Very often, a theater with a big stock of costumes will rent them out. We often will rent from playmakers, for example. We could also buy costumes. Buying costumes is another great way of going about them because you can be very specific about what you get. Of course, that's when we run into the cost issue, right? And certain things just can't be bought very easily. If you need an Elizabethan gown, well, that's going to be tricky to get off of Amazon. The third thing is modifying stock costumes. Most theaters have a stock of costumes that they keep that they use for different shows, and every time they bring a certain dress out or a certain suit out, they'll modify it to fit a given show. So instead of building something new for every single show, they'll say, well, what do we already have that we can modify? Maybe we can take telephone ringing. Maybe we can take this suit that we used before, add some additional trim, change up some of the decorations on it, and it will work for this very different show. That's the answering machine is what that is. So what are the documents that a costume designer creates? The first of them is going to be, of course, the costume plot. And this is a list of every character and every scene and what they wear in each scene. And from that, they can figure out what they need to buy, what they need to borrow. But until that document is created, that overview of the whole play, it's very hard to start creating those things. Once you've got the costume plot and you know what the different looks are for each scene, then the costume designer will come up with sketches. Even if they are just going to be pulling things from stock or borrowing things or buying things and not building them, you still want to have these sketches so we get a sense of what is the ideal look, what are we going for, and then trying to find those pieces or borrow those pieces or buy those pieces that fit that look best. So that is a very quick overview of the process of costume design. As with all of the design videos, you want to keep going back to that design process because all of these things fit into that overall idea of the design process, determining the design metaphor, doing research, coming up with sketches, and producing those technical documents. So this is some specific detail on that, but that overall process remains the same for all of these design elements.